Welcome to 49ers After Dark. We're your hosts, Grant Cohn and Jesse Naylor. If you don't know Jesse, Jesse's making big moves. I'm so proud of Jesse. I'm proud of all my children, and I think of you as one of my children. But, I mean, Jesse's doing really good. I mean, he's taken a lot of the people I contribute with and contributing with them. He's got a show with Jackhammer. He brought East Bay Chris into the YouTube game, and he interviewed the personal quarterback coach of Trey Lance and Justin Fields last week. If you didn't see it, check out Jesse Naylor's YouTube, subscribe to it. It's fantastic. It's like an hour long, and the guy goes into really a ton of detail. So I want to ask you about that first.
Yeah.
Kyle has sort of a mole in this process. He's got an inside man telling him what he needs to know about these quarterbacks. It's not the guy you interviewed, it's someone else. Can you explain this?
Yeah. Okay. So basically, here's the situation. Trey Lance works with Quincy Avery. That's the name that everybody would know is a quarterback guru. Quincy Avery's partner is Sean McAvoy, and that's who I had a chance to interview. So he's worked with Trey Lance, Justin Fields, Deshaun Watson. I mean, tons of big names. However, John Beck, who runs QB Collective, is the one that has been working with Fields. He's worked a little bit with Wilson. And over the last couple weeks, he's actually been working with Trey Lance. Mm-hmm. And so I reached out to Coach McAvoy. I'm like, hey, man, what's the deal with this? Like, is this a long-term thing? What have you? And he played a little bit coy, but I got him to finally come around. And he basically said, well, let's just put it this way. Coach Quincy and I will be at his draft party. I'm like, okay. So this is Shanahan playing chess. He's getting his guy to get these guys ready for a pro day.
And real quick, guy works for QB Collective. Shanahan coached him in Washington. He was a quarterback in Washington. These guys go back. He also played at BYU. Keep going.
Absolutely. So he's playing chess because technically you can't have private workouts. And although these guys are going to be running plays and drills that Shanahan wants them to run based off of what he does in practices, he's having his guy get them ready. And why would he do that? That's because he can get inside mole type information and just ensure that he's making the right pick, because now you're going to see, not only is he getting to see Wilson, Fields, and Lance basically in back-to-back-to-back weeks, but he's going to have his quarterback coach see them in the same light. And he's going to be able to give him some insight. And they're probably going to link up and just make sure that they're seeing the same thing. So I think this is brilliant by Shanahan.
Right. If anything you need to learn about these three quarterbacks, have your right-hand guy work them out. Have your right-hand guy work out with them for weeks, and have that guy decide who the best one is. Who better? Who would know better than John Beck which of those three quarterbacks is going to be the best? Now, it's interesting. The one quarterback he's not working with is Mack Jones.
Right.
What do you make of that?
I just don't think Mack's ever been the guy. I think that the media made it out to be something that it wasn't. I think that, that's the low-hanging fruit. That's the easy thing to say. And when the Schefters and the Rappaports and all them came out and said that it's absolutely going to be Mack Jones, I didn't believe it. I never bought it. And I could still be wrong. We'll see. But I don't think it's ever been Mack Jones, to be honest.
Other way you could look at it is Kyle Shanahan has his mind made up on Mack Jones, and he's just
doing his due diligence.
Yeah, basically, like making absolutely sure that Mack Jones is the guy. And still, it seems like you should do your due diligence on Mack Jones too, right? I mean,
you would think so.
You would think so.
Right?
So anyway, so Kyle Shanahan has a special mole, not just telling him what he needs, but preparing them in like a Kyle Shanahan way. Like, you need to do these passes. You need to learn this script, because if you want Kyle Shanahan to take, you need to show these things. So in a sense, as you said, he's like setting up private workouts that Kyle Shanahan isn't there, but his eyes and ears are there.
Well, and not only that, I mean, Shanahan can request certain things in a pro day, and that's one thing. But Beck is going to be able to tell him, hey, I was able to work with this kid for 2 weeks, and he's extremely coachable. When I put him on the whiteboard, he was extremely smart. Or he wasn't coachable and he wasn't smart. Like, those are things that Shanahan's not necessarily going to find out through this process, but Beck can for him.
Yes. Very interesting.
I think
a
it's
nice nugget.
It's brilliant. It's very brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So let's stick with Sean McAvoy, the coach that you interviewed. I
Yeah.
thought it was so interesting. I mean, he worked with Justin Fields. He worked with Trey Lance. He really gave, I thought, pretty candid analysis of both.
Yeah.
And he also talked about Zach Wilson. Now, the way I interpreted it, I think he would rank it Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, Trey Lance, Zach Wilson, with the caveat that's how it is now.
Yes.
It sounded like he felt Lance is going to end up at number one. It was interesting. He was so skeptical of Zach Wilson, although he might be a little biased because the one guy he didn't work.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he was very persuasive about Trey Lance. It feels like you and Jack were sold, and I feel like I was maybe not sold, but brought far along. So why don't you make the case now for Trey Lance now that you've talked to the Trey Lance expert of the world?
Yeah, I'll say this. So early on in your show, and if anybody remembers this, they'll remember that I said this, and they're like, okay, now all of a sudden you're pounding the table for Lance. I said that Trey Lance would be the biggest disaster if taken. And this was back when we had the 12th pick. And I still think that that's a big possibility. If Shanahan is not patient with this kid, it absolutely can be the case. But now that I know that we have the opportunity to keep Jimmy this year, giving him a chance to sit, I feel like he can also be Shanahan's most beautiful masterpiece he's ever painted. So although it can be a disaster, the way that we've completely moved up to 3 and put all of the chips on the table, he's actually the perfect pick. And I'll tell you why. So first of all, I'm going to go with physical tools. He's got ideal NFL size. He's got arm strength through the roof. He's mobile, and he throws probably better than all of these quarterbacks. And that's including Wilson, in my opinion, off a platform. One thing that and Justin's improving, I believe, but even though he's very mobile, that doesn't necessarily mean that you can throw on the run. And that was something that I felt he had to work on. And I am seeing the improvement, which is great to see. But Lance had that innate ability kind of built into him. When I go to the mental tools, he ran a pro-style offense. He came from under center. And the one thing that I really took away from Sean McAvoy's interview was he ran that offense top to bottom.
Yes.
They would give him the formation, but then they would basically say, they would say, you go up to the line. If you don't like the protection we gave you, you have autonomy to change that. You can look to the outside. You can see where the cornerbacks are positioned and what you think is coming, and you can give them route combinations. Like these are things that not really no quarterbacks in college football do it. And so even though he only played a year, which is one of the biggest knocks on him, what more could he have proven? He had a perfect season. It goes back to when a team is starting out hot in the NBA. Let's take the Warriors, for example, right? They start out hot, and the knock is, well, they're playing a bunch of teams under 500. Well, that may be true, but all you can do is beat who's in front of you. And that's what Trey Lance did. Not only did he beat who was in front of him, but he's the only quarterback in the last 20 years out of the FCS or Division I football to do it with no turnovers. So
that's right.
He did it as good as he could do it. Going back to college wasn't going to prove anything. He already did it the best way possible. But for him, he had some mechanical issues, and they were able to iron those mechanical issues out. He had an issue where he would drop his head when he would go through his reads. That problem, from what I understand, is completely fixed. So an accuracy issue that you may point out is probably now gone. And then you look at the intangibles. He's got a chip on his shoulder because he was told that he can only be a safety or a linebacker in the Big Ten. And the man visits children's hospitals in the off time. Like we talk about the Watson situation, and whether it's true or not that he's guilty, we don't know. But you want a guy that you're not going to ever have to worry about. And I'm not saying that Fields or Wilson or Mack Jones are guys that you're necessarily going to have to worry about, although Mack does have a DUI in his background. I have no concerns about Trey Lance and his character. So that for me is why I would take Trey Lance.
I think the one thing that really stood out, what you said, what Coach McAvoy said, was what he does before the snap. And he even said it like he's not like those other quarterbacks who just get to the line of scrimmage and then look at their coach for all the answers. Like Yeah, like Justin Fields, right?
Right. He kind of gave him a slight there without whether he realized it or not.
Other quarterbacks. Actually, it's what most college quarterbacks do. It's nothing really against Justin Fields in particular. It's how they do it. They get to the line of scrimmage. They let the defense declare whatever it's going to do. And then they stop and turn to the coach. You even saw the Niners do it when Chip Kelly was their head coach. And the coach decides, okay, they're going to do, all right, let's call this play.
Right.
Well, Trey Lance did that. Now, I'm sure the coverages and the fronts and the pressures that he saw weren't super exotic, and it's going to be different in the NFL. But still, sure. I mean, that's Justin Fields didn't do it. And the other thing that the impression I got, tell me if you got a different impression, was he was like, yeah, Justin Fields better now. But Justin Fields been working his whole life at this. He's been going to mechanics people his whole life. It seemed like he was much more optimistic that Trey Lance could improve. That, Fields has been working to improve forever. Trey Lance is just getting started, and it's remarkable how much he absorbs and basically absorbs so quickly.
He called him a savant. He said that when any of these coaches get him on a whiteboard, not only will he impress him, but he'll probably teach him something, which was kind of cool to hear.
Yeah.
The other thing that and I'm glad he said it, because we had a private conversation before, and I wasn't sure that this was going to come out, but he basically said that he was salivating at the chance that there was going to be a combine because he wanted to see Trey Lance side by side with these guys throwing. And that way everybody could see the difference one right after the other, because he felt like that would prove that Lance was the guy. And the last thing that he said was he doesn't have a perfect comp for Lance, and B, he has the most upside out of anybody he's ever coached. That includes Deshaun Watson.
Wow.
That's a big deal.
He's huge. I mean, the kid is really big. Like he's going to be able to run over people the way Josh Allen does and Cam Newton does. I think there's a lot of similarities between Trey Lance and Cam Newton. The more that I look, I mean, you can knock Trey Lance for his lack of experience. Same thing with Cam. Cam played 1 year at Auburn. He also had a year at JUCO. That's the difference. That's basically the whole difference between them. Is a year at JUCO. Right. Now, Cam played in the SEC. He won the national championship. Trey Lance won the national championship. Who's to say what Trey Lance would have done if he had been at Auburn? He's pretty good. So, also, they ran about as much as they threw. You could look at Cam Newton coming out of Auburn and be like, man, I mean, really only about 300 throws, 300 runs. What kind of player are you? Well, he was pretty good until he got a little bit older. I don't know if Trey Lance – I think that the exciting thing about Trey Lance is people feel he has the ability to actually become a full-fledged pocket passer, not just Cam Newton.
Yeah, I think he's a better – if you just look at him side by side as prospects, I think the two knocks that were on Cam Newton, and one of them certainly was fair, which was his acumen. When you got him up on a whiteboard on ESPN in front of John Gruden, he kind of failed. And it wasn't his fault, but it was because Auburn just didn't prep him for that. That's not the way that it worked there. Well, we know that Trey Lance in that situation is not going to fail. Yeah. And the other thing is, just as an overall thrower, I think Trey Lance is more polished than Cam was at that time. All right.
Waruna says, thoughts on Jerry Rice's strong message to Fields. I missed it. Did you see it?
Yeah, I did see it. I don't necessarily think that means that he prefers Fields. I think that he's just reaching out to a kid that deserves to be reached out to. I mean, Fields is definitely getting dumped on by a lot of people in the national media. And quite frankly, I think it's unfair. I mean, he was the consensus number 2 quarterback all the way up until the Northwestern game. And although I would take Lance ahead of him, I have Fields right there. I would not be upset if we took Fields, but I think that he's just reaching out to a young kid that is being slighted right now. And he kind of takes kindly to that because he was slighted in the same way. He was told that he was too slow and he couldn't do this and he couldn't do that. And so when he sees it happen, he just wants to give a good, strong message to it. And by the way, there is a possibility that Fields is the quarterback for the 49ers. And so why not extend that olive branch early?
Good point. I also thought McAvoy had an interesting point about Fields. No, about Wilson. I think he felt that he didn't really like Wilson. What do you think his take was on Wilson? That he basically said, like, look, people are knocking Fields for, like, they say 1 or 2 bad games. Wilson had like 1 or 2 bad years.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Who was he before this year?
Right. I think when he said that he was kind of salivating at the chance to see these guys throw side by side, I think he didn't say it, but I had a feeling that he was talking directly about Zach Wilson.
Interesting. All right, last question real quick. We'll get back on topic. Every move from now on is a smokescreen. Draft picks. Jimmy got a year in draft quarterback in the second round. I'm glad I've gotten so many people on this train with me. Yeah, absolutely. If they did that, I would give Kyle Shanahan an A+++, and I would personally extend his contract for another 8 years. All right. So you made a very eloquent case for Trey Lance.
Yep.
Now let's talk about Nate Sutfield, because I think he's an important person in this mystery. We're trying to figure out, it's like a whodunit. Who they going to take?
Yeah.
Well, I went back to this quote I found from Shanahan. He often says too much. He's the man who says too much.
He is.
And like, everyone's like, okay, in the press conference, just say X, Y, Z, and we're just going to leave it at that. And that's all they need to know. And then when you ask Shanahan a little bit, he'll just go into it. And so in 2017, they were like, well, why didn't you bring back Colin Kaepernick? I mean, he's pretty good. He has a Brian Hoyer, and he finally just launches into it. He's like, you know what? Yeah, you can have an offense for Colin Kaepernick, but you really have to commit to it like he did RG3. And you know what? I'm not willing to do that for Colin Kaepernick because he's not my, bona fide starter. He'd be a guy competing. And I don't want to have a different offense for one backup and a different offense for the starter. And I kind of want to have everyone have the same skill set. He said it. He was on record. And he's like, so that's why we have Hoyer and Mullins and CJ and blah, 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 because we can all run the same offense. Makes sense to me. So that's what he said in 2017. Now, everyone's saying, all right, well, Kyle's learned. He's evolved. I mean, he's had these quarterbacks that weren't good enough. Now he's going to get Justin Fields, and he's going to commit. And he might.
Yeah.
Except for the fact that he just signed Nate freaking Sudfeld, who runs a 4.9 and is not particularly mobile and has much more in common with Josh Rosen and Jimmy Garoppolo and the other guys the Niners have had the last 4 years.
Yeah.
Am I reading too much into this, or is this a bad sign for people who want Trey Lance, Justin Fields?
Yeah. So when you first said it or brought it up as a topic, I was like, okay, yeah, I mean, he's got a point here. I'll say this. In 2017, we have to remember kind of the landscape of the NFL and what was going on. Mm-hmm. Kaepernick was on his way to being out of the league. Mm-hmm. And there was a lot of racial tension at that time. Like, let's just call a spade a spade. And I think that Shanahan wanted to do his best to prop up Colin without poo-pooing him and putting an end to his career. And so I think he wanted to say the right things. And he basically said, at the end of the day, he was starting a whole new regime and he wanted his guys in there. Colin was not his guy. And ultimately, he was never in the long-term plans. And so he was going to say whatever he had to say and be PC about it and just move on. So, I don't know if that quote to me holds a lot of weight today.
Maybe not. It's just interesting. Again, he could have just said XYZ, keep it vague, moving on, doesn't fit, yada, yada, yada. But he goes into this detail because he wants to, because he can't help himself, because he just can't say dumb stuff, vague stuff. It's just, I just can't. I'm just going to. So it's like, okay, fine. You laid it out and I appreciate it. But now 4 years later, I'm going to hold you to the same logic. And if you change it, then I'm thinking, well, then why didn't you really have Colin Kaepernick?
Right.
I mean, really, was it, was this all a bunch of lies or was it just political? I mean, I guess who cares at this point? No one really cares why he got rid of Colin. But anyway, I think he was telling the truth. I think he was telling the truth. I think when he said it in 2017, it may not have been the whole truth, but it was part of the truth. So we'll see. The Nate Sudfeld thing just kills me. It's like, really? Nate Sudfeld, huh? Okay. All right.
So is your thought that Mack Jones is the guy? Is this
I hope not. I hope it's going to be they fool us all, and it's Kyle Pitts, and they take whatever Kellen Mond in round 2 or Davis Mills in round 3. I would prefer that because I don't really see if you put Davis Mills at Alabama and Mack Jones at Stanford, who would be getting all the love in the top 5 right now?
Come on. We know it's Davis Mills.
What's the real difference? I really think if Kyle's as smart as I think he is, he could be doing that. I mean, I don't know. He also said on the record that trading up for a player like Julio Jones is always worth it, no matter the price. Question is, does he think Kyle Pitts is that good? I do.
Oh, I do too. I think Kyle Pitts is, I mean, he's the best player, just pure player in this draft. And that's Lawrence included, in my opinion.
So how many players that are better than the quarterback you want to take are you going to take? I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. Yeah. The Sutfield thing, maybe it means that they're going to take Davis Mills and surprise all of us. If that's the case, a premature – hold on, Vish doesn't like it. Davis Mills processing and decision-making a big question right now.
Yeah.
But let's say this, man. If Davis Mills was at Alabama throwing to all those players, playing behind that offensive line, and Mack Jones was at Stanford, who would be the one with decision-making questions? Who would be the one with interception issues? I mean, it's easy to look like a good decision-maker when all you do is drop back and throw to your first read as quickly as possible because you trust him. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's fair that he does have those issues now. Shout out Vish. But
it's true. I wouldn't take him ahead in the top 100 picks for those questions.
No, for sure. But if he was at Bama, I agree with you. I mean, when players are running wide open, it's the same thing that happened with Baker Mayfield. That's why I didn't like Baker when he came out. Like, if you can just watch highlight film after highlight film and people are running 3-4 yards wide open, it's like, okay, well, come on, man. Like, anybody that is decent can look amazing under those pretenses.
Also, Mack Jones throws the ball so early and he throws it down the field, and his guys make plays. In the NFL, there's a lot of guys on defense are going to make plays. He's going to throw a lot of picks playing the way he does.
Right.
Vish, you know I'm right. Davis Mills may throw a bunch of picks too, but Davis Mills is going to be a late third, early fourth round pick as opposed to Mack Jones.
Right.
Davis Mills is going to be able to sit. Mack Jones is going to have to play anyway. Raymond.
Well, and maybe worst case, Davis Mills would have gotten the comp that Mack Jones should be getting, which is late round 1, early round 2, just to be frank.
I think that's probably fair. I mean, really, Mack Jones has about 570 throws. Davis Mills has about 480. Again, you put Mack Jones at Stanford, UCLA, it wouldn't look that good. I mean, I don't know. Raymond says, was Kyle's miss on Watson Mahomes his epiphany? It was rumored that Deshaun was plan A. It would be refreshing if so. I think this is the question. Has Kyle had an epiphany? I suspect no. But I think you and most 49er fans hope the answer is yes. Because if it's no, it's a little bit bleak. You know? Like, really, Kyle? You're never going to
pretty bold. I've been pretty bold in saying that it's never been him, and I've been that way the whole time. So I've got a whole group of friends that are not 49er fans that are ready to just shoot me the text of daggers the night that we take Mack Jones. So I hope for my sake it's not.
This is Mack throws people open. You know how many times his receivers jump up and make 50-50 catches, though? I mean, I'm just saying like, if he threw the same passes at UCLA, they wouldn't be complete because it's not Jalen Waddle. It's not Devontae Smith. They might be good passes. They're just not going to be complete. His completion percentage isn't going to be 77, and no one's going to be talking about him in the top 10. It's just – I watch UCLA football. I know.
I think Mack throws people more open than what they are. I don't think he's throwing people open. I think even when he quote unquote throws somebody open, they've got a half a step, and he's just putting it in the right position. Which again, it's not. You can't knock him for that. It's the same thing that I just said about Lance. All you can do is play who's in front of you, and he looked pretty darn good doing it as well. I just don't think. Listen, if I'm wrong, Vish, you can come back on me in 2-3 years. Mack Jones will never be a top 20 quarterback in this league. I'm saying it right now. I don't care who he is drafted by.
I don't think the only thing like if you slow it down with Mack Jones, he throws the ball so early. I mean, you say it's great anticipation. Yeah, the guys aren't even open yet when he throws the ball, and it's like, okay, you trust them to win because they will. In the NFL, your receivers won't win as consistently because the DBs are great too. Their DBs are first round picks too. And if you trust your receivers that much, you're gonna throw a bunch of picks. It's just
right.
Ryan says, "How do we get Pitts and Fields?" Well, you trade Bosa to New England, to the
Warner
Jets.
Or Kittle or something. Yeah, that's how.
Break out the checkbook and keep spending. All right, back to the show. Let's do a couple projections.
Okay.
Lance versus Fields. Who do you think is going to have a better career and why?
Okay. So much of this comes down to who drafts them.
Yeah, of course.
Obviously,
that's a great point, and it's important.
If we draft Lance, there's 2 places that Lance can go from me to have major success and win this argument. And I think it's us, and I think it's Washington. And when I said, a few shows back that Lance could be the biggest disaster, I also said the perfect place for him was Washington because I felt like he could sit for a minimum 1 full year. So if he goes to those situations And there's rumor that Washington may want to move up all of a sudden. If he goes to those two situations, he'll be just fine, and he will be the better player. However, if he doesn't go to either of those teams, then I got to give it to Fields, because right now Fields is slightly more polished. And if Lance doesn't go to us, then I'm assuming that Fields is going to us. So that's an automatic win as well.
I think it's going to be Lance, because I think Fields is more polished, but only slightly. If Fields went to North Dakota State and Lance went to Ohio State, Lance would look more polished, and he'd be great at Ohio State. So here's the thing. Since people think Justin Fields is more pro ready, he's going to have to start. He's going to have to play right away. And Lance won't. Everyone knows Lance needs time.
Yep.
Lance is going to sit on and that's going to help him. You said here and Washington. I got another place. For you. New England.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess that's yeah.
Are you kidding me?
You go to New England, you're in a pretty good spot.
He's exactly the type of quarterback Josh McDaniels has been searching for since he drafted Tebow. And if he could sit 2 years behind Cam Newton, I mean, there's so many similarities between the two.
Right.
They run the same exact offense.
Yeah, that's true.
Perfect.
That's
so
true.
If Trey Lance could go there, sit for a couple of years behind Cam, as opposed to Justin Fields starting day one for, the Jets or even the Niners. Like, the Niners have a good situation in the sense that Kyle's here and Kittle's here and Debo and Ayuk and Mostert, but pass protection matters too. I mean, look at Andrew Luck. He didn't make it to 30 because of pass protection. So this team led the league in quarterback hits allowed. Justin Fields,
I want to be clear.
Ask Jimmy Garoppolo about it.
I want to be clear too, because I said it early and I'm going to say it again. If all things are even, Lance will be better than Fields. And if the 49ers are choosing between these two, it's absolutely Trey Lance.
Love it. All right, let's move on. What about Lance versus Wilson? Okay.
I think Wilson is going to be
Do you think he's fool's gold?
I think he's the most fool's gold. And I've said it from day one. Again, to me, what you called it out on Twitter today. You said long driver, and you didn't say specifically him, but you said watching these guys throw deep in pro days is like watching a long drive champion. Happy Gilmore. And I said it last week. He's a professional. Exactly. He's a professional dunker. Yeah. He's going to give you the oohs and ahs, but can he dribble a basketball? And when you watch him roll left and throw right and everybody oohs and ahs, and then 2 plays later in that same pro day, he has a 5-yard out to the left and he misses it by 1.5 yards. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah. I don't think that he's as athletic and as big and as strong as Fields or Lance, and he's going to either get killed in the NFL because he thinks that he is that athletic, or B, I think that he's got way too much swag for the talent level that is actually there, and I question if he's ever going to learn the fundamental side of the game.
I think that's pretty much dead on. I mean, with a guy like him, he runs too much. That is the deal. He runs too much. People compare him to like Aaron Rodgers. Rodgers doesn't run that much. He'll scramble like twice a game. Or you compare him to Patrick Mahomes, same thing. He'll scramble like twice a game. This guy is going to scramble a lot, like 7, 8, 9 times. It's more like Kyler Murray. And Kyler Murray got hurt last year. Kyler Murray's quicker than him.
Yeah, so way quicker.
When Zach Wilson's on the field, you're just going to be like, anytime he gets hit, he runs, you're going to be like, ooh, is he going to get up? And that's how I felt with Deshaun Watson. Watson didn't scramble that much. He scrambled enough to buy time. This guy's going to be running. And I'm just wondering, like, how long is that going to last? Dude? Yeah. I mean, with Trey Lance and Josh Allen, when they run, I'm like, oh, this is going to be fun to watch. Yeah. I hope a DB is okay afterward. But with Zach Wilson, I don't know, man. I don't know.
He's definitely not as elusive as a Lamar, a Wilson, Kyler. Like he thinks he's Kyler. He thinks he is, but he's not. He's not.
All right, let's switch gears. Everyone knows why the Niners traded up, or we think we do. Mm-hmm. Why did the Dolphins trade down? I mean, the Dolphins they drafted Tua last year, this quarterback who looks like a backup. Yeah. I mean, he was a disappointment, and they benched him like 40 times. He'd play, and they'd bring Ryan Fitzpatrick back in. So, I mean, they know he's underwhelming. Maybe they have hopes for him, but if there was a quarterback at 3, we've seen teams do this. The Cardinals had Josh Rosen, and then they just dumped him for Kyler Murray. If there was a dude at 3 that they was just a no-doubter, I think they might have taken him and traded Tua, but they didn't. So why did they trade down from number 3?
Yeah, so I think it kind of goes to your point that they didn't have a quarterback that they're sold on. And with that said, the way that they think that this draft is going to go, if they wanted a playmaker, whether that's Pitts, Jamar Chase, Devontae Smith, whoever, they know that they're basically going to get their pick of the litter. The best playmaker in this draft is most likely going to fall to 6. And the way that they manipulated it was fantastic, because whether they're at 3 or they're at 6, they're probably going to be making the same decisions regardless. However, what I will say is, if they didn't like one of these quarterbacks and they just royally screwed it up last year, that gives me a little bit of hope that maybe the percentages are in our favor, because
it's not like they have
somebody
a good
might be good.
right.
Right.
I mean, they took Tua over Herbert. That's a fireable offense right there.
Yeah.
But you got to admit that what they're saying is they're betting that there's no great quarterback available at number 3.
Yeah.
Because they got to know Tua ain't great. Maybe they feel Tua's, the good enough, but he ain't great. If there was a great one, they would take him. So they're saying there won't be. And I think, odds, historical precedent say they're probably right. But the Niners are saying you're wrong. You're so wrong. You're not willing to take this guy with the number 3 pick. We're willing to spend 3 years of first-round picks plus a third to prove how wrong you are. And that's what I love so much about this trade. I mean, the Dolphins and Niners are really in a standoff here.
Yeah, they really are. And listen, percentage, we broke it down. You've broken it down 5 different ways. I've broken it down 5 different ways. And regardless of what numbers we throw out, whether we go the last 20 years, we go top 5 picks that were traded for, first-round picks, it doesn't matter how you slice this pie. The percentages of us hitting on this quarterback are slim to none. So we better get it right.
And the Dolphins are feeling like there's no way we lose this trade. We got him. I mean, they're the over anxious ones. We profited, but a lot of times with these trades, they're like loses.
Yeah.
Let's see what Miami ends up doing with the picks they get, because they're the ones that took Tua, and it's like their original sin. The Niners missed on Patrick Mahomes and Deshaun Watson. Well, they missed on Tua, so good luck.
Well, I mean, let's just think about it logically. Let's say that there's 2 quarterbacks that are for sure going to be hits out of these top 5. And let's just throw the Niners a bone and say, we don't know if it's pick 1 or pick 2. We don't know who the quarterbacks are, but only one of those guys is going to be a hit, which means there's one guy left out of the next 3. At best, we've got a 33% chance to land it. Like, that's at best. In worst case scenario, that guy goes 1 and 2, and we have 0% chance. So it's tough, man. It's a tough situation. I liked being at 12 better. It was a lot easier.
Yeah, it just I said this morning on Twitter, the Niners should trade down to pick 12. I mean, imagine how many first-round picks they could get. Probably 3, maybe a third. I mean,
listen, Philly wanted to be there, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Just recouped our first-round picks, yeah.
Let's just run it back. Darnay says, watching the interview with McAvoy, with Lance's knowledge of concepts and the game as a whole, I don't believe he'll have to sit a year. Thoughts?
I don't think it's as set in stone as what we originally thought. And he said it. I asked him point blank, is it better to have sat for a year and iron out those wrinkles, or would it have been better if he played? And he said it depends on the quarterback. And he said with Fields, it was better that he played because he needed to learn to have more command of the offense, which I'm not positive that he got, by the way, because what changed?
Nothing.
But with Lance, he had clear mechanical issues. He could do no better than he did the 1 year that he played at North Dakota. He played perfectly. He already has full command of an offense, understands exactly what he's looking at and what he's seeing. So for him, it was to iron out some of those issues. And I feel like he sees what Lance is today, and we're still watching 19-year-old Lance on tape.
Yeah.
I think we're all in for a big shocker when we put eyes on this guy for the first time, whether it's on a practice field, whether it's preseason, or in a live game with live bullets. I think we're going to be pleasantly surprised with how good he's really gotten.
I can't wait to see it. All right, final question, and then we're going to be – that's the end of Niners After Dark. Okay, not a quarterback topic. We're quarterbacked out for the day.
Mm-hmm.
Predict which wide receiver the Niners will draft, because they draft one every year, if not 2. They've drafted one no later than mid-second round since 2018. So what do you think?
You're right. So listen, we just talked about tendencies of Shanahan, right? And it's hard to go against somebody like a Mack Jones because of the tendencies he's had in the past and the things he said in the past. Well, if I think he's going to buck that trend this year, I think he's going to buck all the trends. And so I'm going to say that he doesn't look to get a receiver until round 5 or round 6.
Okay.
And that receiver, because he's watched a lot of film of a particular player that is probably not going to end up on San Francisco, but he sees another player while he's watching that film, and that's Dax Milne.
Oh, BYU. Okay. I like it.
I think that he could be a prototypical slot guy, and if you give him some time with Wes Welker, that he could be probably pretty decent.
Okay. My guess.
Okay.
I don't think Kyle's going to. My entire offseason philosophy is Kyle hasn't changed. Kyle doesn't change.
Right.
No one really changes. So, yeah, Kyle, he could wait, but 5th round's a good spot for that number 3 slot receiver. That's where they got Trent Taylor. But you could argue they need a guy who can fill in as the number 2 guy. You're replacing Kendrick Bourne. Kendrick Bourne played 600 snaps last year, 450 the year before that. He's basically as important to the offense, if not more than Juszczyk in terms of playing time.
For sure.
And given Deebo Samuel's injury issues that date back to college, you would like a number 3 guy who could become a number 2, someone who's a little bit bigger than 5'8", something like that. So I think Kadarius Toney from Florida is a guy who fits what the Niners do. He's a gadget guy, but he's fast. He can get down the field. He's not just yards after the catch. He's a deep threat.
Yeah.
I don't know if he'll be there when the Niners draft in round 2, but if he is, I think the Niners could resist. They may even trade up because they like to do that.
He's Vish's draft crush, if I remember correctly.
Great player.
So
he's a hell of a player. He's a lot like Percy Harvin.
Yeah. I think that he can be a very good player in the league. I still question whether Trask is making the receivers or the receivers are making him. Outside of Pitts, who I know is generational, Tony's only had 1 year. He was non-existent the year prior, right? So I don't know. I'm not positive. But what I will say is I think that other teams probably agree with you, and I would be shocked if he makes it to us at 43.
Yeah, probably.
So do you think if he's there, let's say at 37-ish, could you see the 49ers trading up? Yeah?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Because Kyle gets his guy, and if that's his guy,
he's locked in.
He's locked in. He's
locked in.
Yeah, that's the way I look at it. Burrow arguably had more talent in LSU than Mack Jones with an easier schedule, but Mack had a better season. Where's the Burrow hate? I think people that like Mack Jones, and if the Niners take Mack Jones, the person you compare him to is Burrow. Mm-hmm. Burrow was last year. All the things you could say about Mack Jones, he was on a great team. Burrow did too.
Yeah. Burrow did too, but Burrow also had intangibles that Mack will never have. His arm, frankly, is stronger. Yeah. He's more athletic. He can move a little bit. Those are things that Mack's just never going to get. And by the way, I'm very consistent. I wasn't the biggest fan of Burrow for a lot of those same reasons. I thought that he could be decent. And who knows, with an injury now, and we only saw for half a season. The book's still out on him. We don't know for sure. Let's see once people get tape on him how well he actually does. But he looks pretty dang good. He looks better than what I expected him to look. So for as much as I touted on Twitter that I was on Josh Allen, I was on Herbert when he was a sophomore 4 games in, Burrow, if he turns out to be something, I missed on him. So
you didn't miss on Justin Herbert, though.
No. 4 games into his sophomore year, I said he was going to be an NFL star. So there's that.
Yeah, you got it in writing. That's our show for today. Thank you, everyone, for watching. I love 49ers After Dark. I look forward to it every week. And I'm going to be going on in 20 minutes with East Bay Chris on his channel. Jesse, you created a monster, but I appreciate it. Everyone, make sure you subscribe to Jesse. His YouTube link is in the description. Jesse, thank you. Everyone, thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
We'll be back next week.